Oh boy, is it ever. And one of the episodes I loved the most had to do with a reported, I'm just going to say, to me it happened. It had to do with a UFO experience in the Berkshires area of Massachusetts. Dateline, 1969. It was Labor Day when dozens of people said they saw a UFO, including one man who was just 10 years old at the time. Look at this.
And I was running full speed, and I remember just feeling like I was flying at this point.
And he was like running right here in place, just constantly for about 5 minutes. He was running in place.
I was running, but I wasn't moving. I just got a feeling that something was wrong. And I didn't know what it was, but it just gave me chills. Off to my left, there was a rock, and there was a path, and we were right on the path here, and the rock was just off to my left. And as I turned slowly, I turned, and a UFO dropped right out of the sky right in front of me. And a beam came on me. And as the light was on me, my hands jerked back like this, and it's like air got sucked out of me.
That's Tom Warner, who was featured in the Unsolved Mysteries episode, talking about his abduction, his experience. And we're thrilled to have Tom join us now via Zoom. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, and good morning, Fox 9 News and your program here. And I want to thank you for all having me on to talk about this incredible, incredible day.
No, I got to tell you, thank you. I reached out. Let me rephrase that. A friend of yours reached out to me. I was talking about this on my radio show and how this was one of my favorite episodes. I want to kind of pick up, Tom, where that clip left off. You described, well, let me back up actually a little bit. What made you go outside? You said it was a feeling, right, Tom?
Well, actually, it was actually mental telepathy. And I was actually coloring with my neighbor, Debbie. And it was mental telepathy, and it said, you have to go home now. And I looked out at the clouds, and I said to Debbie, Debbie, that must be God talking to me from those clouds. And she goes, what? I said, I have to go home right away. I mean, I was raised Irish Catholic. What else could be talking to me? So let me tell you, if you think God's talking to you, your butt's moving.
You run, Tom.
And that's exactly what I did. You know, it was like, run, Forrest, run. This was run, Tommy, run. And I ran out of the back room into the kitchen, and just seeing the look on Graham, who was the grandmother, we called Graham, and Jane, who was the woman who actually watched the whole thing along with her grandmother. And the fear on their face put more fear in me. I was like out of there. And once I hit this area where there was a rock, everything went like in slow motion. And the thing that really got to me was all of a sudden there was like all these crickets, we call them the September crickets, and the noise just got sucked right out. It was gone. The noise was gone. And then this UFO just dropped right out of the sky.
Did it look, Tom, did it look like what science fiction writers have been writing for years? You know, kind of a disc-like object. Do you remember what it looked like, or what you...
I remember specifically what it looked like, because as a watercolor artist, I did a painting of it.
Yeah, I know you did, yeah.
And I did that because, you know, it was more like therapy for me, because the thing that caught my eye right away was there were colors I'd never seen before. I mean, you could say this is red, this is blue, this is purple, whatever, but these colors I'd never seen before. And it was like so close up. I mean, this was like really close.
And then you were actually, unlike others, and we'll get to, we got to talk about your book, we got to talk about the other people, but unlike the others, you were physically taking into the craft. What did you feel? I mean, and were you consciously aware, Tom, of what was happening to you?
It was so fast. It was like my arms jerked back and the air got sucked out of me, and then I'm there. The one thing I remember seeing right away was that I saw a girl off to my right that later on I identified as Melanie, who's in the show. And I do recall seeing other kids, but you know, it was kind of foggy. You know, you'd see something and you know, you're getting images, but it's going by so fast. And I saw what looked like a human alien hybrid. It looked like I saw an alien. And then I was fixated on a table and the lights that I was seeing in the room.
And did it hurt? Did you feel anything?
I didn't think about it at the time. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like so surreal. I mean, you know, if you looked out if you looked out your window and you saw like a 57 Chevy parked up in the air, you'd say, a what? You know, and you look up and there's Fidel Castro waving down. How you doing? You know, I mean, come on. I mean, this is a UFO. It's like, this thing was like 40 feet, 30 to 40 feet and over 20 feet tall. I mean, this wasn't no Piper Cub sitting out there, but it wasn't moving. The one thing, it was unbelievable because I could see just before all this happened, I could see that one part of the UFO was going in one direction, one part of it was going in the other. It was going in like 3 different directions, which was,
So
it was just taking in the detail.
we have so many more questions. We're going to talk about Tom's book and more. So go get another cup of coffee. We'll be back right after this with more Tom.
But I remember levitating, and then I remember being on a ship. I remember being laid out on it.
That's when I saw Melanie. It was the only face I remember. She just was crouched to my right.
I don't remember seeing him, but he said he remembers seeing my eyes, and that I was really scared.
The look of, oh my God, fear.
I was in a room
Yeah,
with just
I would have that
young
look as
people.
well. Welcome back. That's Tom Warner, one of the people featured in the new Netflix show, Unsolved Mysteries. This particular episode about a UFO experience in the Berkshires area of Massachusetts in 1969. Tom joins us again. Tom, you didn't know Melanie before that moment, right, my friend?
No, not at all. Actually, the first time I saw Melanie, where I actually ID'd her, was my freshman year in high school. And I opened up one door and Melanie was coming the other direction. And I thought I was going to faint from fear when I saw her. It's just like, whoa, I knew who it was right away.
So
know?
you guys had not connected since that night?
No, we haven't connected till maybe two years ago. The whole process, people were starting to talk more and more about that night. And I had no intention of ever telling this story. You know, it's like, I don't want to tell this story. And then I get one interview, another interview, and sooner or later, you know, I got interviewed out of Boston, and then Unsolved Mysteries called me. But
Well,
I
Tom,
wasn't.
Tom, I
Yes?
want to ask you about that because you were not the only one. And forgive me, other than you, the other woman that really struck me was the woman, I believe she was 85 toward the end. And
Right.
her quote at the end, kind of, and I'm paraphrasing, she was the one that made me believe, and I was kind of a believer anyway. She said, I am 85. Why would I make this up? But she talked about her apprehension. You just mentioned it too. What was the apprehension, Tom? Was it possible ridicule? Was it just you didn't want to go through having to explain this over and over again? Where did that apprehension come from?
Well, it actually started when I started talking about it to certain people, you know, and then I think I was about 13 years old, and a priest said I had Satan in me, and that was it. I was done. I wasn't going to talk about it anymore. But then at 13, someone brought it up again. And total strangers brought it up to me, and I kind of just pushed the whole thing aside. And you know, I had a life as a soccer player, as an athlete. I had a life as an artist. So I had no intention of telling the story, but it slowly got told. And then I decided I was going to write a book. And one of the people who was a witness to this, who was not on the show, her family wasn't on the show, but witnessed it that night. She died 5 days before I could interview her. And I said, I have to write this story. And the reason I started writing my autobiography was to help others, because so many people feel, you know, trapped in their own story where they just can't tell it. And I've been getting messages, positive messages all over the world, thanking me for coming forward. So perhaps it's a good thing. You know?
What is the attitude toward this experience, toward this story in your area, in the Berkshires? How is it looked upon?
I get a lot of people coming up and thanking me because it
Yeah.
puts a good light on the Berkshires. You know, it's a number of people saw it that night and they're thank you for coming forward. I feel, you know, validated. And it was not easy coming forward. It wasn't easy for any of the people coming forward at all. I mean, after this happened, being on Unsolved Mysteries and Netflix, everyone recognizes me wherever I go now, everywhere. So it's like, but I knew that was going to happen, so I was prepared for that.
Well, when we come back, I want to talk about what happened after the episode started airing, what info you're hearing, people that are contacting you more. Our final minutes with Tom when we come back. Stay with us, everyone. Welcome back to the show. We're talking live with Tom Warner, one of the people featured in the UFO episode of Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries. Tom, what did you think of the episode? I've said I think it's beautifully edited, beautifully shot. I think it's well done. What did you think of it?
I think the director, Marcus Clark, and the whole crew did an unbelievable job. Actually, what we did is we had it on a projector and put the projector onto a neighbor's barn where the UFO dropped me off, and then had a large speaker out there. And we had some friends who were, in the filming business in Hollywood and everything. And we had them over, and it was scary for me. And I was in it, I was like, wow, it was so well done. It really was. And it was very accurate telling the story. It really was.
But yet, obviously, because you're one of many stories in there, you were telling our producers, there's info, there's details that obviously they couldn't fit in there, right?
Oh, Lord, yes, absolutely. So
give us one. Give us a nugget of that maybe is your favorite that they didn't put in there. Is there an element of the experience or something that you find interesting that we didn't hear?
One, that there were others, and the second one was 2 weeks later. I had a similar incident, and we just couldn't. The reason they did it is the Berkshire UFO, and that night that there were so many people who saw it. It was like a community. It wasn't just me. This isn't about me. This is about the subject of UFOs and what's out there. It's not about Tom Warner or Tom Reed or Melanie or anybody else. It's about the whole subject, and how I look at it is, at one point, everybody thought the earth was flat. And then they found out it wasn't. Well, since I was a kid, I'd be telling them there's other planets out there, and they'd look at me like I had lobsters crawling out of my ears, you know? It's like, oh yeah, but no, they didn't want to hear it. And slowly this is coming forward, including, you know, the government slowly coming forward, you know, admitting some of these things. But
Is that one of the reasons you wanted to write the book? You mentioned in the first part of our conversation, Tom, it was kind of cathartic. You used a different word. Did the book really help even you process it after all these years?
Yeah, it really did. I mean, I had to do it because I had to come to terms with my life.
Yeah.
This is an event like, oh, I stubbed my toe or something here. This is crazy, but there was a purpose for it. You know, there's a saying, there are no accidents. There's only appointments. And I had that appointment. I had an appointment, and I'm a messenger. And so I'm taking responsibility for that and coming forward so that others can come forward too. And the whole thing is, if humans are to expand out of our world, we have to be able to have that time to get there. And we have to do that by taking care of the planet. And that's one of my big messages is we have to take care of what we have here, including the people on this earth.
We're hearing a lot of headlines, and I knew this was going to happen. It's the power of Netflix, whether it's an unsolved crime or, in your case, just an interest in the subject matter. Tips are coming in. Leads are being followed because of Unsolved Mysteries. Have you been contacted by a lot of folks, Tom, that have had a similar experience?
A lot of similar experiences, which was really shocking to me. Like I'm saying, like, and some of them were on Air Force bases too. And I'm like, wow. And at one point, I even interviewed, in my book, I talk about that I interviewed an Air Force pilot who had a lockdown on a UFO, which is, you know, it was bizarre.
Seriously?
Seriously. And he was thrown out of the Air Force because he wouldn't change his report. It was pretty emotional talking with him, you know.
Are you happy this happened to you, Tom? Do you consider it, is it, or have there been moments in your life when it's been more of a burden? I
suppose it's a mixed blessing.
Yeah.
You're a messenger. You have a message to tell, so you have to tell it. And in many ways, I put things in my art, and that's why I did the painting. And, you know, I was able to express myself through my art and poetry. But this platform came forward thanks to, you know, Unsolved Mysteries, that they decided to tell the story. They flew out here from Los Angeles to our home here in the Berkshires, and they were stunned by the story. And they said, we have a story here to tell.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter if I was on TV, whether I did the Unsolved Mysteries. I had to tell my book, and whoever read it, read it. And if I helped one person by writing a 57,000 word autobiography, then that's good, you know? And if I can make one person think, you know, that would be good.
Just to open up their mind to the possibility. I think that's what this show did. It did for me. I was, a sort of believer, but you and everyone else featured, I just kept thinking to myself, why would you make this up? So, Tom, thanks for
why would you want to be on there? You know what they say? Listen to the angels, fly with the aliens.
Absolutely. Tom, thank you for being generous with your time with us. We greatly appreciate it, and thanks for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me on and to discuss this complex subject matter.
Absolutely. Go get Tom's book, everyone. Thank you, Tom. And you can watch the Berkshire's UFO episode of Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix right now. It is worth getting Netflix for, let me tell you. We're going to take a break. We'll be back to wrap things up with Kendall in just a few minutes.